Hello everyone, my name is Anne. I'm the director of the Walworth-Sealy Public Library. And today we're going to be doing a craft at home tutorial to make some recycled t-shirt tote bags. So each Tuesday we're going to be posting a craft video that you can follow along at home. We're going to do our best to make it easy projects that you can do together as a family or as an individual. And we're going to try to use supplies that people would likely have around the house so that people don't need to go out to the store and buy more supplies. So for today's project, we'll need a few things. The first thing is your t-shirt that you'd like to use. The thicker the fabric is, the stronger the bag is going to be. So this one was more of a regular shirt rather than a t-shirt, so it does stretch a little bit. So keep that in mind when you're picking your shirt that you want to use. And then you're also going to need a ruler or some kind of straight edge so that you can draw out lines with a marker. And you will also need a sharp pair of scissors. So if there's any kids that want to do this project, it is fairly easy, but just make sure that a grown-up does the cutting for you. Alright, so I'm just going to change my camera angle so that you can see what I'm doing and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is lay your t-shirt out flat on the table in front of you. And we're going to start by just cutting off both sleeves. There we go. Alright, so your sleeves are what's going to function as the handles of your bag. So the next thing we're going to do is trim the collar of our shirt to make those handles a little bit bigger. If you want to have a nice round opening, you can use a bowl or a plate to trace a nice even circle, but I'm just going to kind of follow the lines and make it a little bit more oval shaped. And you want to make sure that you're cutting both the front part of the shirt and the back part of the shirt at the same time so that it's symmetrical. Alright, and you can always make this bigger later on, so make sure that you start small and you can trim it once you're all done with your bag if you want the handles to be a little bit longer. Okay, so here's the start of our t-shirt tote bag. The next thing you're going to do is flip it inside out. And you can kind of decide how deep you want your bag to be depending on how big your shirt is. So you're going to lay it back out like this. And I think this is probably a good depth for mine. You don't want to make sure that you don't go too close to the edge because you'll need enough length to be able to tie together some tassels. So just don't get too close to the bottom. Once you have your height, you can go ahead and draw your line with your straight edge. And if it's not perfect, again, that's okay. The bottom of the bag will kind of even out once you tie the knots. And we'll continue on this side. Okay, so you can see my line goes all the way across. So our next step is you're going to trim the seam of the shirt from your line down to the bottom on each side to open that up so it's two different flaps. way, so I just trimmed it so that my front and my back pieces are now separate. Okay, so our next step is we're going to make this whole section into fringe that we can tie together. So these don't have to be perfectly even as long as they're roughly the same width. I would say about 3/4 of an inch to an inch is a good distance apart. So again, you can just kind of eyeball it. You want to be cutting the front and back pieces at the same time so that they make two fringes that are the same width and the same distance apart. So we're going to do that all the way across our t-shirt. And again, if you have kids who are doing this project, just make sure that a grown-up does the cutting for them, since you do need some pretty sharp scissors or fabric scissors. But I promise that the next part kids can do. Just want to make sure you go all the way up to that line, so that the bottom of your bag is fairly even. And be careful as you're going along, if things start to pile up, that you don't accidentally cut the fringes that you already made. Make sure that you just have your t-shirt. And if you get to the end and it's a little thick, that's okay too. Alright, so now we have all of our fringes cut, and we can go on to tying. So, to tie these together, you're going to work in your pairs, your top and your bottom piece, and you're just going to tie them in a double knot. You want it to be fairly tight, because remember the fabric has some stretch to it. So if you have it too loose, it'll leave gaps in the bottom of your bag. And if things are too heavy, they might poke through. So you're going to just tie the front piece and the back piece in a double knot. And we're going to work in groups of 3, because there is a second step for the knot tying. So here's my first 3. Okay, so you see how the knots are kind of pulling the bottom of the bag in and cinching it a little bit? That's what you want. So, I don't know how clearly you can see, but I have my 3 sets here. And what we're going to do to make the bottom of the bag a little bit stronger is I have my tails for my first knot and my third knot pulled off to the side. You see these ones in the middle? You're going to take one of those and you're going to tie it to one of the strings from the first pair. And again, you're going to do a double knot. Just like that. And then we have our third set with one left over from our middle set, and that's going to get tied to one of the tassels from your third set. And this is just to kind of close up those gaps that I mentioned earlier, so that the bottom of your bag is more continuous and doesn't have holes across it. Okay, so that's our first set of 3. We're going to continue across the shirt doing those sets. So just try to keep track of your groups of 3 and do those as you go along so it's a little bit less confusing. So once again, we're tying our first set. We're going to do a double knot. Okay. Our second set. And our third set. Okay, and now we're going to take one of our tassels from our middle set, go back to the first set of this group of 3, tie that into a double knot. And then I have my end set with my middle piece, and we'll tie those together. Okay, so now I have 2 complete sets of ties done. We're just going to keep doing that across the whole shirt. Now as you get towards the end, it's going to be a little bit harder to see where your knots are, so just try to keep track of those tails and count backwards if you have to. Alright, and as you can see from my last set, I only have 2 fringes left. That's okay, we'll just knot them together instead of doing a group of 3. So we're gonna do the same thing, do your first set. And your second set, and just make sure that end one is especially tight, just like we did at the beginning. And then you're gonna just tie those 2 knots together. Alright, so now our knots are done, the bottom of our bag is sealed. You can kind of look through, and if you see any sort of bigger gaps like I have right here, you can just pick a tassel from each of the adjacent knots and tie those together to kind of fill that in. So I'll put an extra knot right in here nice and tight. And let's see if I have any more that are loose. Yeah, there's one. So we'll do an extra knot here. That one is a little loose. It's okay if there's a little hole, you just don't want any big ones that will stretch out when you start putting things into your bag. Okay, so once you're happy with all of your knots, then you're pretty much all done. So what you can do is just flip your shirt back right side out so you can see your design. And there you go, your bag is complete. So like I said, if you want to make your straps a little bit longer, at this time you can cut a little bit deeper here. And if you feel like your tassels are really thick in the bottom, maybe they were long to start, you can trim those by flipping it back right side out. But other than that, you're all done. Alright, so that is how you make a recycled t-shirt tote bag. If you want to embellish it at all, you can. You can use fabric markers, fabric paint. You could cut up some of the extra fabric you had from the sleeves and tie them around your handles, or just tie a knot in each handle. Whatever you'd like to do to customize your bag. And what's great about these is they're machine washable, so they're great to take things to the beach or get produce at the farmer's market, anything like that. So thank you for following along. I hope you enjoyed this craft, and we'll see you soon. Bye from everybody at the library. We miss you.